I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Jonathan Stutz.
Leaders need to model the behaviors that they expect of their people in the organization. So leaders creating a connection with their employees. And we talk about getting to know your people at a deeper level. The manager creating a connection where employees feel comfortable sharing and opening up starts with the leader being vulnerable and being empathetic and demonstrating compassion.
Jonathan Stutz is the president of Global Diversity Partners, whose mission is to help leaders and their employees build inclusive and equity environments so employees feel they belong. He has 25 plus years of experience as a leader in two of the world's largest companies, Amazon and Microsoft. Jonathan earned his MA from City University of Seattle in organizational leadership and a BA in political science from the University of Washington. He serves on the board of trustees for the Bellevue, Washington nonprofit Youth East Side Services and has served as a human services commissioner for the cities of Bellevue and Kirkland, Washington. He and his wife, Stacy, have been married 42 years and have 2 adult children and a cherished English cream golden retriever, Simon. My interview with Jonathan Stutz is coming right up. But first...
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure. I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Jonathan Stutz, welcome to On Brand.
Thanks, Nick. Great to be here.
I am excited to chat with you on a topic that seems big and vast, and it is one that certainly feeds into the work that leaders are more charged with today than ever before, but it's one that can kind of prompt that question of where do I even start with that? In fact, it's kind of getting into where do I even start this podcast conversation? So where do most conversations around inclusive diversity, equity environments start when it comes to the work of a leader?
Sure. Well, for leaders, I think of myself as somebody who wants to build a high-performance team. I think, you achieve your goals, your aspirations as an organization, as teams, through the people that work for you and work with you. And to do that, you want to build a team that's high-performing, that's highly effective. How do you do that? And what we argue is that the best way to do that is to create a culture where every person on the team feels seen, heard, valued, and understood. And that's really building this environment of belonging. Because if people feel they belong, they're going to be more committed, more loyal, they're going to feel a greater connection to their leader and to their teammates. So this is what we help people understand is that inclusion, and this is why we call it inclusion, diversity, and equity, ID&E, versus what you'll hear out, different combinations of that out in the in the world, because it starts with inclusion. And as a leader, that's what you really are striving for, is to be an inclusive leader so that your employees feel they belong. And that's really, the essence of what inclusion, diversity, and equity work is really about, is helping you build a team where each person gets what they need, and the team then is able to perform at a very high level.
So we talked about where to start, and I love the importance of, the listeners of the show know I'm a big fan of kind of geeking out on why we use which words and when, and to your point, in what order. So I think that is important foundation in getting a solid footing. Your book focuses on the daily practices of this. So we talk about where to start, zooming ahead to what does the daily work of this look like? Because I think one of the challenges too is, we're going to bring someone in, we're going to do a workshop, and then I can check that thing off of my list. And like so many big challenges, it is something that needs to be a daily practice. So how do you define ID&E when it comes to the daily work of a leader?
Yeah. So a lot of folks think that when you're asked to do this diversity work, that it's something additional to what you're already doing, and you already have a very full plate. And what's different about our book and the information that we share with leaders is that this is actually work that is built into what you're already doing, and it's making these small, intentional, easy adjustments to what you're already doing. So the way we use two metaphors for this. The first one is about dropping pebbles, and that you drop a pebble and that creates a ripple, and somebody else sees you, and this is a behavior you're doing. It may be, just to give you a quick example, it may be in a meeting where women get interrupted in meetings at a much higher percentage, the studies show, than men. So a woman's getting interrupted in a meeting, and somebody else in the meeting, maybe a man, says, "Hey, excuse me, John, Betsy was not finished speaking. We want to hear what you have to say, but let's let her finish first." That behavior of stepping in and being an advocate for her and letting her finish what she was going to say is dropping a pebble. And somebody else sees that, and then they drop a pebble. Maybe in the next meeting, they saw the behavior that you modeled, and then they drop a pebble, and that causes somebody else to drop a pebble. And those pebbles cause ripples, and those ripples over time create waves. And that is the change you'll see in the culture over time, that interrupting is not a behavior that we support in this organization. So that's just one small example, but it's this idea of dropping pebbles that are small intentional steps that actually help people see the behaviors that are valued in the organization. The other one we use is this idea of being rocking the boat. And, rocking the boat is having the courage to speak up when you see something that is potentially offensive to somebody else or inappropriate or just doesn't feel right in your gut, to speak up and say something, and to creating this speak up culture, and modeling that behavior can help other people also see that, hey, this is a speak up culture. When you see something that isn't being done in the way you think it should be done, or how it should be done, or when it should be done, just speak up and say something. And that's kind of rocking the boat. And the idea is to rock the boat and rock it hard, but not so hard that you knock anybody out of the boat, that you keep everybody in the boat. Everybody's part of the solution and part of the team.
I love those, and I love that they're grounded in metaphors of dropping pebbles and the importance too of speaking up and rocking the boat, and the natural responses specifically to like speaking up, rocking the boat. We tend to, both as leaders and team members, kind of lean away from those opportunities. It seems scary. It seems like you're, grabbing onto a charged wire. So we don't want to move towards those. How do you respond to that dynamic that so often just avoidance can feel a lot safer?
Right. Yeah, leaders need to model the behaviors that they expect of their people in the organization. So leaders creating a connection with their employees. And I think one of the most overlooked opportunities to create connection so that people do feel that their leader is going to have their back, and they can speak up, and they can speak be authentic and speak their mind, take chances, take risks. Is in the one-on-one meeting. When you sit down with your manager, let's say every week or every 2 weeks, your manager has a huge opportunity there to create a deep personal connection with the employee. And we talk about getting to know your people at a deeper level and understanding their goals, their aspirations, what their concerns are, the issues both in the work environment, but also outside. Like, we can't be 100% every day. There's things happening in our lives, both positive and really, challenges that people face in their lives. So the manager creating a connection where employees feel comfortable sharing and opening up starts with the leader being vulnerable and being empathetic and demonstrating compassion. So when leaders share that they struggle, that they're having difficulties, that they've got stuff going on in their lives, maybe a sick family member or, some kind of difficulty that they are facing, the employees see that the manager is being vulnerable, so that when they're facing a situation, they know that manager is going to be more empathetic to them and their situation, and they'll feel safer sharing. When you can demonstrate that, families first, your health first, and speaking that truth helps employees feel the connection to their manager. It's kind of an I've got your back, you've got my back culture, and that helps free people up so that when they're in meetings, they can, provide that dissenting opinion. They can push back on their manager and push back on team members and know that it's in the interest of the organization, of the team, and it's not personal. And that helps a lot to help people feel free. And what ends up happening for the organization is not only do you get that diversity of opinion and perspective that helps us solve these super challenging problems that we face in business today, like artificial intelligence and all the complications and difficulties and legal and privacy issues around that. But it drives this creativity, because when you get that variety of ideas on the table and a really rich debate, that's when you can drive to innovation. And that's what helps the team perform at that high level, when you're really sharing all those ideas and debating. And leaders need to be the beginning of that. So, kick that off and model that behavior consistently, so people do feel safe to not hold on and not speak, like you were saying, that fear of being criticized or ridiculed or ostracized, that they actually are encouraged to, find their voice and speak up.
On Brand will be right back after this.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, employee well-being benefits to help you and your people grow, and amazing discounts on travel, insurance, and IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today by searching IKEA Business Network.
Now, back to the show. So your career has seen you as a leader in two of the largest companies out there, Amazon and Microsoft. When we look at this work, and we've talked a lot about the challenges, and we can even think about that at a small scale as a leader on a team, but what does that look like at Amazon and Microsoft level scale when you're having to tackle a really big issue at a really big organization with a lot of moving parts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what I've learned over the years, 19 years at Microsoft and almost 5 at Amazon, to do work at scale, you need to influence without authority. That's a huge aspect of it. And to influence people without that higher fire, power, if you will, you do need to spend the time to get to know people individually that you're working with across the organization and find out what their goals and interests are and what their challenges they're facing. And so when I've been working on large cross-organization challenges and trying to get everybody on the same page, it's really spending the time not only sharing the vision, but helping them, or helping basically understanding what their challenges they're facing and how I can potentially weave what I'm doing, the initiative that I'm driving, into what they're doing, and help that actually helps them solve a problem that they're facing while also achieving the larger goal. And once they see that they're actually going to have it's the old sales line of what's in it for me, right? With them, it's understanding what's in it for them and helping them achieve their goals while also achieving the larger goals of the organization. The other thing I found is that coming to them with the problem or the challenge we're trying to solve, like one of the last projects I managed at Microsoft was developing a unified incident response system. We were going in those years from box product to the cloud. So the company had like 15 to 20 different incident response solutions because they could be in silos. But once we moved to the cloud, we needed a unified solution so that both on the engineering and the customer communication side, we had a unified response from an engineering perspective. We had a unified response as far as the narrative that we were sharing about what the problem was and when it was going to get solved. And to get everybody on the same page, I had to really meet with all these different individual response leaders and find out what were the issues they were facing and how, and the benefit to them and their business specifically. And that drove the shared vision, but then also they participated and took ownership because they were part of these. These are adaptive learning problems, right? No one person has the answer. So we needed a team of people to go at it and listen to everybody and hear those perspectives to generate a solution that no one person had the answer to. And that was that creativity that led to the innovation of the Unified Incident Response Program. So that's kind of how I approach it at scale is help people be part of the solution, help them be accountable and take ownership. They feel they have a real stake, and listen to them. A lot of it, we use this phrase in my book, lead with your ears. Leading is about listening oftentimes to the needs and the issues and then helping people solve those. So you're really a servant leader in that perspective.
I love that phrase of lead with your ears. My pause was me feverishly writing that down. That's a good one. That's going in the act. I loved also your story, and it reminds me of why that's important too, because I love the Joseph Campbell idea that stories, that myths give life models, and it's so important, especially when doing new things, when doing challenging things. In researching your book, beyond your own experience, are there other organizations that you pointed to that you discovered that, wow, they've really got it? If someone's struggling with this, you should look at them?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes our book really relevant and super fun to read. It's not a dense, intense, thick book, with that you have to drive through. It's really a guide, and it's filled with stories from our personal experiences. So what we leveraged was the research of 25 years of working in these companies, and telling those stories of the what worked at Amazon and what worked at Microsoft and Zulily and Avanade and Starbucks with my co-author who worked at those companies. The essence of that is that those, where we had positive stories, we obviously named the companies and the people, and where there were, more, let's call them formative learning, where they really failed, let's put it, in clear terms, we didn't name, people or the companies. But certainly at all those companies that I've just mentioned, that's what we leverage, because you write about what you know, and we really wanted to leverage that. And also we did research with companies that were doing good work with setting company goals for around diversity, and programs like Intel and others like that. So that's a part of it. The other thing I should say is that what's very different about our book that is different from other books out there is that the first 5 chapters are the foundational chapters of the book. We talk about the importance of why leaders are key to the daily practices. we talk about this kind of model that was based on my master's thesis, the Yellow Brick Road of Leadership. And then we felt that master's thesis had the bones for a book. And that's kind of one of the genesis of the book itself. But this idea that leadership is about having wisdom, it's about having courage, and it's about having heart and a belief in yourself and this shared vision, right? And that kind of leverages that Wizard of Oz kind of thinking. So we kicked off each chapter with a profile of an inclusive leader. So we took people that we knew from 3 large companies and from 2 small businesses, and their stories are told. So those are best practices that I think what your question really gets to is, what other companies are out there. So companies like GCAP Services, a small compliance Hispanic-owned business in Costa Mesa, California. We focus on Ed Salcedo there. And Carletta Uten, who was a vice president that I worked closely with at Amazon. She led the health, safety, sustainability, security, compliance group at Amazon, like 15,000 employees. She's now at Apollo Global Management out of New York and a partner there. And so she's profiled. So again, we tried to mix it between small business and large companies and have these leaders talk specifically about their inclusive leadership philosophy, how they actually apply it. So it's very relevant and practical for folks picking up the book and reading it in addition to our stories of our experiences.
Well, I like that you broaden that too, because I do think, it can sound like you're kicking someone while they're down, but we also learn from stories of those that, don't do that. And it is helpful to see that illustrated as well. Maybe those companies wish that they weren't one of the bad examples. But I also like, especially for a topic this big, and I feel like that's been my theme throughout this conversation, this big, this vast. It's something that, as I think about converting these ideas into book form, that it could, kind of like you led off that last point with, it could lend itself to an encyclopedic treatment. And I love that you describe it as a guide. And, I feel like the most useful books, we were talking about habits beforehand, they are things that we pick up because we want to do something better. So the whole concept of framing this as a practical guide sounds like something that would be really helpful to a variety of folks. And to that end, who do you think is we talk about leaders, but sometimes we get hung up on, do you actually have direct reports? And you even in the story there talked about influencing without authority, which is a position I know many find themselves in. So what definition of leadership applies to who should pick up this book?
The primary audience are people that are people leaders, people that are leading teams, and they're either small teams or large teams or even small companies. So I think that's the primary audience, is people leaders. We say that inclusive leadership is leadership. So this is as much a book about leadership and leading teams and building these high-performing teams as it is about creating an inclusive, equitable and diverse culture in the company. The secondary audience are people that are in the business that I've been in for many years. Is this, they call DEI, or inclusion, diversity, and equity professionals, people that are actually doing the work on the ground, boots on the ground. This book builds on the work that many other people have been writing about and doing for years. What's really different about our book than all the other books out there is our book is organized. That second half of the book, once you get through that foundational section, it's organized by the employee life cycle. So to the point about being a guide, you can literally, pick up this book when you're doing recruiting, or you're doing hiring, or you're doing talent development or talent management, or the promotion cycle. It goes through the whole employee life cycle, and you can literally find the practices to apply at that particular moment that you're working on it. So we expect this book will be dog-eared at different sections and Post-it notes in it, so leaders can have it on their desk, pick it up when they're working on a particular area, and use it on a daily basis to help them lead effectively and create this culture of belonging. The other thing that's really unique about this book, that's not just a a leadership book or an inclusion, diversity, equity book. It's really also a book about how to manage change, how to evolve an organization over time. So there's a whole chapter on overcoming hurdles. And this leverages not only my work in diversity, but also, like I was saying, doing these large scale changes in a company like the Unified Incident Response Program that was, it had everything to do with diversity because we were working with very diverse teams, both from lots of more around different skill sets, right? Whether it's communications or engineering, so more on the disciplines. But it talks about, we leveraged all of our experience in doing change management at scale in large companies that, can apply anywhere, and how to overcome those challenges, how to overcome those hurdles. So leverages our, years of experience doing change management, and I also have a certification in change management. So all that knowledge is in that chapter, sharing what some of the most common challenges that people will face and how to overcome them. The last thing we did is there's a whole chapter on leveraging the human resources function as a partner, because our groups, these inclusion, diversity, equity groups, are historically underfunded, under-resourced. And again, talking about scale that you asked in a big company, partnering with human resources to help us scale and get the work done through their voice, through the contacts they're having with leaders and employees. And so we give lots of tips and daily practices on how HR as a function can help drive change in the organization. So we think it's really a super helpful guide for leaders, and it's something that's really missing in the niche of leadership, in management, and in the inclusion, diversity, equity space.
Well, the idea of helpful guides for challenging topics makes me smile, and it is now time, Jonathan, for me to ask you for a brand that has made you smile recently.
It's funny. I was talking with my wife last night and over the last couple of days about this question. And, I think the thing on a daily basis most consistently that makes me happy, I got to say, it's Amazon. I mean, there's just something about ordering something at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and waking up in the morning and opening your front door and it's there. Or having it the next day. I think it's just, or the day after, within a day or two, oftentimes. And the fact that it's so easy to return stuff if something doesn't work out, it makes me happy every time. And I think that I think there's a lot of love-hate relationship, especially if you're like an independent bookstore and you're struggling to survive. But in the end, I think that Amazon provides a great service to us, and we're so busy and so many things we're trying to get done at one time, to be able to just quickly tap that order button and have it arrive the next day is pretty amazing. And that's a brand that makes me happy. And I think they do it super well and have continued to build on their core competencies.
To say nothing of the fact that a smile is actually a part of Amazon's logo. So
it's true. You're right. You're right. I didn't even. You're so true. That's so true. You're so right. I didn't even think of that when you to connect the two. But you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Well played. Well, where can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. So we've got a great, really website that we're so proud of called inclusivepebbles.com. There are videos, there are podcasts, recordings. This one will be up there eventually, and there are there's a blog article and resources. And one thing we did in the book, so inclusivepebbles.com, but one thing we did in the book that's very different from any other book out there is we used QR codes that take you to the resources section on our website, take you to the videos. And what's great about that is we can keep that updated as resources, become outdated or new ones come into play, or we want to post new videos. So the QR codes in the book are really a unique feature that most books don't have today. I think we'll see that more in the future. But inclusivepebbles.com. And then my business website is globaldiversitypartners.net. Globaldiversitypartners.net is one word. And that's how folks can reach me directly. And then to learn more about the book, go to inclusivepebbles.com.
Awesome. Well, we will link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can always find at onbrandpodcast.com. Jonathan Stutz, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thank you for having me, Nick. It was a lot of fun.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.